So we're going to talk about the metaverse and Facebook. Two words you thought you weren't here this morning. So Facebook is looking to hire 10,000 people in Europe to build out a metaverse program for everyone. The interesting thing about this project is, one, they're trying to hire 10,000 people, which is a whole lot of people. That's a ton of people. That's a ton of people. Second, metaverse. They want to build it for everyone. They want to build it like an open internet protocol so that everyone can participate in this metaverse. And Facebook itself wouldn't just dominate it, which I'm not sure if I totally believe that.
Seems
but pretty
suspicious.
Interesting to see them kind of, yeah, it does seem a little suspicious, doesn't it? Because they've had a lot of problems over the years. Jen, I'm going to throw this down to you. Metaverse is obviously the place a lot of VCs are parking money and a lot of people are growing interested in this. Facebook obviously has some AI projects. They also have that Oculus project, which a lot of people use to jump around in the metaverse with. Now they're putting a ton of capital into this with 10,000 people, and also in Europe, which is a notable line here since they're mostly like an American company. What is your thought on this?
Well, I hope I don't take us too far away from the story, but when I think about Facebook and their operations online, I immediately think of all of the regulatory issues that they've had. And now I think about Facebook building out a metaverse that they don't want to own or operate. It's going to be open for others to participate in, but it still has the Facebook name attached to it. And I just think, like, as more communities and people migrate to the metaverse, I think we're going to see a lot of regulatory issues. And I don't know that regulators have been thinking too much about it because they've been really involved
in
what's going on in the crypto space. Yeah, I don't think they have been thinking about it. I don't think they can even wrap their heads around it. But it's going to be interesting. What if a crime is committed in the metaverse, or what if rules aren't followed in the metaverse? Like, this is a discussion I really think we're going to be having, and I don't know what Facebook's role is going to be in that. What is your metaverse policy? What if Naomi and I are just having a coffee in the metaverse and she steals something from me? Who is responsible? And so that's where my mind went this morning. I don't think I've offered any insight, but just something to think about, because I think that this is something that's going to come out in the future.
The bandits of the metaverse. That's some serious stuff right there. Yeah, I don't know. I think the Facebook metaverse, I think it's worth, my understanding is that the Facebook metaverse is a different beast from like some of these crypto metaverses that we're seeing that are a smidge more open. So you have crypto voxels, you have Decentraland. I think those are the two big players in sort of like the blockchain-based metaverse space. And my understanding here is that the Facebook metaverse is sort of its own thing that is not related to that. I think you could extrapolate and say, hey, maybe one day in which DM has actually launched many years after first being announced back in June 2019, that would be the vehicle by which you could buy stuff in the Facebook metaverse. But even that, I think, is still pretty prospective at this point. So I'm just curious if we're going to see sort of like a corporate metaverse versus like an open metaverse, and I'd be really interested to see which one is easier for mass adoption and whether or not the values of an open metaverse are coveted, or if the more potentially user-friendly Facebook metaverse is where people end up going. I'll toss it to Naomi. I saw your hand up. I don't know if it was related to that, but curious for your thoughts.
So I know that I mention Neil Stephenson like every episode of The Hash, but it is important to know that he coined the term metaverse in his sci-fi novel from 1992 called Snow Crash. Fantastic novel. Again, he always writes about these anarchist, cryptocurrency, cypherpunk type themes in his book. It's super interesting. So Jen, if you want to know how this stuff's going to play out, read Snow Crash and learn about the metaverse through that. It's all kinds of interesting dynamics. They have got real estate in the metaverse. It's not unlike kind of this NFT world that we have now, where it's very expensive. It's highly coveted. You want to be on like the main strip where all of the avatars are walking past. Like it's just a really cool exploration of what this metaverse might be. And he kind of invented this term and first explored it. So I encourage everyone to check that out. But in terms of Facebook kind of being in charge of this, I mean, going back to Stevenson, like in this novel, you have this main company that kind of owns the pipelines for the metaverse. And so you kind of got this, like, I won't give away any spoilers, but like this intrigue that's created like with what happens when someone owns the cables. It's a little bit different to Facebook because they're not the internet service providers. They're kind of just building this open source product. And if anyone can contribute to it, it makes it a lot less ownership heavy. You know, maybe they will be doing a lot of development in that space. Maybe they'll be hiring a lot of developers. But I mean, Facebook does a lot of work in open source. They invent a huge amount of cutting edge technologies that they then put out to the world and other people then use in their products. So it could be a situation where they kind of expand this world that has been slowly chugging along, but Facebook's just going to like throw in a chunk of investment and get this stuff moving, and then other people are going to start to contribute. All you have to worry about with like open source projects is if you get one player that's really kind of dominating, they tend to move the product in a direction that really aligns with their product, which does stop competitors from having the same access. So it'll be interesting to see whether that sort of stuff happens with this Facebook metaverse. But I personally am excited to explore what this is like. I am just also very wary about Facebook. I mean, we know what their business model is. Obviously, they're going to be wanting to collect as much data as possible from this metaverse. So that's the biggest kind of worry that I have. But again, until we see how this thing actually is laid out, we won't really have much details. But Will, I'll throw it back to you.
Yeah, I'm wondering, do you get like a book deal with that Neil Stevenson guy?
Yeah,
I should.
You
I'm going to start adding like referral links, affiliate links
like
in my
royalty or
videos for
something.
Neil's. But honestly, you guys, if you're
just
in
business.
crypto and you haven't read his books, you're missing out on a huge chunk of the culture that has built this community. You're probably missing out on a ton of references. Go ahead, read this stuff. It's fantastic. But Jen, throw on to you for the next story.
I'm going to throw to Zach quickly, but I want to ask you a question. Does the book say anything about law in the metaverse? Please tell me.
Well, kind of, it's all law is code, right? It's all written into the code. So you abide by whatever rules that each private enterprise has built into their code. So you have rules about whether you can enter certain people's establishments, rules for like how the demons work. Like it's a pretty cool exploration.
Demons in this metaverse.
Well, demons in our computer, as in like software that runs in the background on your computer. But in the metaverse, they're kind of humanized and they're anthropomorphized or whatever it's called.
I just wanted to share a pointless story that I went to a Blockstack conference 2 years ago, and they had like, it was like crypto conference, but they had like an onstage interview with Neil Stevenson, and they gave out his latest book, and it's a honker of a book. It's like a doorstop size book. So I've yet to finish it, but it's true. Crypto people love
Neil Stevenson. You want to come on this show? You please contact us. We would love to have you here, chat with you. Big fan right here.
Let us know. All right, good stuff.